Hey guys, Jonah here, and welcome once again to Unclejona's Emporium of Beer and Craziness. If you're new to the channel, think about subscribing. Hopefully, this video will entertain you. This beer is from a box I got over Easter, self-made box, and this was essentially one from Bristol. It is from Arbor Brewing. It is a Northeast Pale Ale, not an IPA, a Pale Ale. You will see why that is later on. And it's called Saskadena. And I'm assuming, I know Arbor do some leaf stuff, but I'm assuming that's some sort of, yeah, East Coast thing, perhaps. Let us see what it says. Oh, it doesn't give us too much info. Apart from it's a big can, it's 440. It's Citra and Azacca hops at 4.5%, which is absolutely fan-dabby-tastic. And obviously from the Arbor Ales. Yeah, I thought it was going to tell me something about what this is all about. What this is, what the kind of Saskadena actually means. Tell you what though, I'm liking the black top. Dun, dun, dun. No, silver bottom once again. I tell you, one day I'm going to get a can of beer with a black bottom and I am going to be lost for words. But until then, dear viewer, I will keep waxing lyrical, hopefully entertaining you, and more importantly, drinking beer. And hopefully reviewing it. This one should be a good one though. Originally, sorry, I don't want to, there we go, don't want to kind of explode everywhere. This was, yeah, one of the Beer 52 boxes, but I didn't get this particular beer. But apparently this was the beer of the box, according to them. So the buyer, the main buyer for Beer 52 said this was his favourite beer. And I tell you what, the beer scene in Bristol is pretty damn good. There we go. Let's cap it off there. We have got quite a good amount of head on there. What should we call that? A finger and a half, maybe? A finger of fudge is just enough to give yourself a treat, apparently. That's what they used to say in the 80s. Was it the 80s or the 70s? Anyway, they used to say that kind of stuff to fool us that chocolate was good for us. And it probably is. Unless, like me, you have the diabetes, and then, yeah, you got to be careful about that. Head has dissipated quite a bit. And if we look at the head, look at those big bubbles. I know for a fact that that head is going to fast disappear. And let's have a look at this beer. It definitely looks like a kind of milkshakey type beer. And as far as I know, he says, looking at said can once again, yes, we have both wheat and oats contained within this bad boy, along with the Citra and the Azacca. Wow, this is interesting. So I'm getting lots of fruit, like tropical fruit, but not in the normal way. I'm getting more of that kind of papaya, kind of mango-y type tropical. So not so much of the pineapple, but those kind of softer fruits. Those, I guess it would be stone fruits, because a lot of those do have a big stone in the middle, but usually that's not what people mean when they describe a beer as having stone fruit. Not much of the kind of citra thing going on. So if you're an old stalwart of the channel, you'll know that Citra is one of those hops that you can basically use for anything. And in this particular beer, he says, scratching his nose, is probably used for the bittering, and the Azacca is probably used more late on in the boil, perhaps in the whirlpool, maybe even dry hopped with it. But that might change once we start drinking the beer, because this is purely from my nose. So those of you that have followed me for a while know that I try and keep it simple, stupid. So kissing you all, mwah, mwah, on both cheeks and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I go for the eyes first, nose second, mouth third. That's my way of doing beer appreciation, beer judging, beer reviewing. That's what I'm doing now. Let's dive in. Cheers and beers. See what we get out of this one. Oh, interesting. So it started off very soft in the mouthfeel, not a very bitter beer. So I'm assuming that this is more kind of what I would call a new style beer where they've put a lot of the hops late in and not so much up front. However, it then descends into a kind of more juicy kind of thing going on. But I'm still not getting a huge amount of the citra coming through. Maybe a kind of touch of green right in the background. But up front, as opposed to the kind of what I thought it was going to be on the nose, it was all about the stone fruit. Pardon me, the more tropical kind of stuff. Now I'm drinking this beer, I'm all of a sudden getting a bit more juice. Um, and by that, I'm thinking, yeah, tropical crush, if you know what I'm saying. Um, yeah, a little bit of more pineapple-y, a little bit more kind of, I wouldn't say grapefruit. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but definitely a citrus kind of blast in there. And weirdly, I was expecting like a mango and that kind of thing, and it was on the nose, but not in the mouth, which is yeah, which is good. Let's go in for another taste. Ooh. Yeah, there's a lot of different kind of fruity, kind of weird things going on in this beer. Um, yeah, I would say citrus, juicy kind of stuff, perhaps over. Yeah, it's not grapefruit. That's the weird thing. It's fruity. It's not orange either. It's kind of one of those flavors that's kind of something you get in beer that perhaps you don't get in the fruit themselves, unless I'm sure there are some lovely weird tropical fruits that I don't know exactly what they taste like. Um, then you've got, this is an interesting thought. You do have oats, I think you do. Yeah, wheat and oats in this beer. So perhaps without those present and just relying on the barley, you would have got a more kind of bitter, kind of juicy flavour. But because you've got the oats and wheat in there, just to kind of meld everything together to take the edge off things, um, yeah, I think that's actually doing a good job. Sometimes it mixes everything together and you end up kind of with a bit of a murky kind of beer. And wow, I mean, that is super, super opaque. You cannot see anything like that at all. Um, but yeah, flavor wise, somewhere in the middle. Um, yeah, stone fruit and tropically or citrusy type thing. Um, and maybe a bit of both. And it kind of swings from one way to another. Really, really good beer. I'm really glad also one of my absolute bugbears. They have called it an any pale ale, so a northeast pale ale, or a New England pale ale, I should say, as opposed to an IPA. And at 4.5%, this is not in IPA territory by any means, but it is, as the can says, firmly within pale ale. So I think that's fantastic. It's definitely in the modern style. It's definitely cloudy or hazy, as you would say, perhaps. Real juicy flavors coming through. The creaminess, maybe not so there so much. So perhaps they've put a little bit more wheat than oats in there. Is that a bad thing? Well, I've said it before. If you put too much oats and then you add a citrusy type hop, sometimes you end up with kind of orange milk, and that doesn't go together. But not so much in this. I think perhaps they were doing that just for the kind of mouthfeel, because it is a sort of medium mouthfeel as opposed to a really light one. For a pale ale, that's pretty good. And obviously, it's giving yeah, the opaqueness that you would find in a kind of modern hazy beer. Oh, it's very refreshing, very light. But yeah, that's really strange. Yeah, that it's a lot more juicy and citrusy on the mouth than the nose. I'm still getting a bit of that kind of stony fruit kind of stuff, and maybe some light, high notes. Like the white fruits, the lotus perhaps, which comes across on the nose, whereas it's not coming across in the mouth at all. Another thing to say, I guess another benefit, shall we say, of having oats and wheat is we definitely have some lacing, some tide lines sticking to the side of the glass. But if we move round to the back, only a tiny few kind of, what shall we call these little marks? Jumping fish coming out of the beer, and it's not actually producing any subsequent stuff or foam watch, um, which I'm an actual fan. Some people take the mick because you're always talking about lacing and stuff on the side of the glass, but I think, along with someone that I respect a lot, Charlie Bamforth, um, who I don't know if he's actually lecturing at the moment, but he was lecturing in the brew development scheme over in California, at the University of California, Davis. If you're interested, they have quite a good brewing program, as the Americans say over there. Really, really worthwhile looking at. He used to work for Bass Brewery over here, so it's like, yeah, right, dude. But he has a real love of head retention and foam, he calls it. And I've listened to him on a number of interviews, and yeah, I think we would get on pretty well if we went out drinking together. Who knows? He's getting on a bit now, so maybe we'll meet up one day. That would be really nice. But yes, I am a firm believer in the love of foam. Let's finish this off, and you guys can get on your way. Okay, interesting. That last sip, that last tiny morsel, maybe a little bit more creamy. Perhaps the particulates, the oats and wheat, if you like. I always think they settle out to the bottom of the glass. And perhaps in this case, that's what's happened. So that last sip was a little bit more creamy, but still not one of those really thick milkshakey type beers. That's not what this is about. But that was really nice. I'm liking the Azaka. The Citra, I have to say, I really wasn't getting that much at all. I mean, a hint of green in the background, but not by the normal kind of mown grass thing that I usually get from Citra. So that wasn't there. So I think they probably used it in the boil up front, um, and those acids um, got absorbed for their bitterness, perhaps, of which there wasn't a huge amount, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, that was a nice beer. Was it beer of the month? I don't know. I think there were some other beers that would have been better. I quite like the Northern Monk beers and that kind of stuff. But that was the Arbor Saskadena, however the hell you say that. New England Pale Ale, 4.5%. That is a decent beer, I have to say. Dear viewer, Please take care of yourselves. As always, take care of each other, and I'll be back with another beer review. It's coming up real soon.